Hello, everyone. Right, in this live stream, which is called How to Be Happy When Everything's Cack, I'm really just going to be discussing how to be happier or less unhappy. Really depends on the situation, because, of course, situations can be pretty grim at times. So before I get into it, the usual disclaimer, I'm just going to be giving any information about plants or recommendations in this video for information and entertainment purposes only. If you have any health issues, please go and see your registered medical herbalist or doctor. And I will link any extra information in the description box in YouTube below this video. All right, just to start with, I want to really cover 3 approaches in this video, and that will be mindset, action, and plants. So, and I'll be going through each of those and giving a couple of suggestions that I might give to clients or that I use myself if going through some difficult times. I mean, when I say when everything's cack, obviously that can be things can be mildly cack, like I'm saying relatively mildly, like just had a significant breakup of a relationship, or maybe you've lost a job or something, or significantly cack, like maybe you've been diagnosed with some very, very serious terminal disease, or you're losing your sight, or you're in prison for the rest of your life or something. Life can be pretty harsh. Everybody goes through those times. It doesn't make them any easier. And there are no easy solutions or hacks that will make everything perfect. But there are techniques you can use that will help you survive and adapt. And so I'm going to try and talk about some of those. So the first one, the mindset, is really important. So I guess I'd like to talk about 2-3 things here. One of them would be gratitude. Now, this obviously doesn't mean gratitude for the rubbishy parts of life. It means gratitude for whatever small things you may have to have gratitude for. So if you have food, if you have a bed, if you have a friend, if you have access to hot water, if you have a good conversation, whatever, a gratitude practice. And I know this has been said many times. I find it personally very helpful. Clients find it very helpful. Just running through that. And I think a good time to practice that is before bed every night. Just run through a list of everything you're grateful for that day before you go to sleep. And there's been studies showing that that actually helps improve mood. And I think it improves coping in general. Another thing would be to try to see the opportunity in everything. So, you know, that whole cliche about every crisis is an opportunity. Well, kind of, sort of. I mean, I often sarcastically say that, you know, the Nietzschean thing of whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. No, that's not true. Whatever doesn't kill you sometimes half kills you. But it is true that in every crisis, there is always some kind of opportunity. Now that opportunity may be very limited, but there's always something you can use. So I mean, these are the kind of crazy thought exercises I do, but I've sometimes thought if I, for example, were to lose my sight or to find myself in a situation where I was paralyzed and unable to move, I would want to start learning astral projection, which is the idea you can sort of project your spirit or your mind out of your body. Now, many may object that that is a fiction or that that is impossible. Nevertheless, it's a technique that people do and you can learn it. Now, whether it's all in your imagination or not, who cares? It's a discipline that you can learn. And in that situation where one was confined to one's body or lost one's vision, it would be kind of a cool skill or thing to learn to do. So anyway, I'm not saying that that's necessarily my solution. What I am saying is that even in the grimmest circumstance, there may be something that you could focus on or use that the circumstance has sort of like given you the opportunity to do. It may be an opportunity that you would not have asked for or requested or required, but it might be something that you could use. So gratitude, opportunity, and then the third one for mindset would be Stoicism, or I kind of like the Taoist idea of Wu Wei, or actionless action. So one's the sort of Eastern Taoist philosophy, the other is a sort of ancient Hellenic philosophy. So Stoicism really is just being, as the ancient Greek astrologer Vettius Valens put it, a soldier of fortune. It just means that when things are going badly, you accept that things are going badly, and when things are going well, you accept that they're going well. Much easier said than done, but a stoic attitude is simply the recognition that life will always go up and down. And if you can hang on to that wheel until the wheel turns again, your head might be underwater for a while, but eventually you'll be upright. And I think the Chinese philosophy of Wu Wei, or actionless action, sort of returning to simplicity and doing as many things as you can to get into a flow state that absorb you, that take up your attention and enable you to do that actionless action, which is really just being in a flow state so that you're engaged and absorbed and, in a sense, distracted from all the nonsense in your head or that life might be throwing at you as far as possible. I think those are all good things. So that's a few little mindset things that might be helpful. The second set of things would be action. What actions can you take? So, I mean, there are lots of different things that could be done here, but one, not everybody likes this or can do it very well, but one would be meditation. So, just doing some form of meditation every day. There's lots of studies on meditation. I know so many people who say, I can't meditate, or I hate meditation, it does my head in. And that's fair enough. But there are very, very simple ways to meditate. Simplest is just sit in a chair and breathe and be in the room. That's it. And if you can do that, if you can't meditate, do that for 1 minute. Do it for 1 minute. If you've never meditated before, that minute can seem like you might set a timer and then be checking your timer, going, what is that minute not over yet? So, but just doing that, just the action of sitting in a chair and breathing deeply, the breath itself will change your mood. The breath itself will change your state. As you breathe slowly, that puts you into a state of, if we're being all physiological about it, parasympathetic dominance, which means that your autonomic nervous system goes into a rest and digest state. That then signals to your brain that you're in a relaxed state of mind, and your mood will follow. So I'm not saying that 2 minutes of meditation is going to make you wildly happy, but it might de-escalate you from a 10 on the stressometer to an 8 or a 7 or a 6. So that's one action that can be taken. The other, in the opposite direction, because I do like to think of these things in sort of binaries in a sense, would be like the relaxation route, which would be meditation. The other would be the challenge route. So that might be, there's loads of stuff about Wim Hof. You don't have to do the Wim Hof method, but something like the cold challenge or hot challenge. So sauna or cold water. That could be as simple as doing a 30-second cold shower. It could be a full-on cold immersion. It could be a sauna twice a week, whatever. The idea of those, or either heat or cold challenge, is that it makes you physically more resilient, and it makes you mentally more resilient as well, because putting yourself through such a challenge, I mean, many people enjoy saunas, but actually the cold bathing, although initially really horrible, is amazing afterwards. So the voluntarily putting yourself through that will level up your ability to handle other life stresses. So those are two examples of actions that can be taken. So when I say action, I just mean some practical thing. And the final thing, the plants section, there are so many plants that are useful for helping to make things a bit less cack when things are cack. So I've talked about a couple in the previous video I did on self-sabotage. So have a little look at that if you haven't seen that one. But just in terms of, I'll give you some other examples today. So there's an obvious one I could mention for mild depression, which everybody knows about, which is St. John's wort, or Hypericum perforatum. That can be helpful for mild depression. Interestingly, though, it wasn't traditionally regarded as an antidepressant. In medieval times, it was a herb of the sun. It had bright yellow flowers, and when it's infused in oil, it creates a bright red oil. So it's seen as a solar remedy. which actually does fit with its modern use as an antidepressant, because we know that sunlight in the brain creates serotonin. So I often think about people taking St. John's wort, particularly in autumn and winter, as like herbal sunshine. But traditionally, it was also used for wounds, particularly painful wounds, like wounds that severed nerves. And it is quite a useful anti-neuralgic. That means reduces nerve pain type remedy. It does have some limitations. It is not suitable for everyone. For some people, it can make them feel a bit edgy. It also interacts with lots of medications because of the way it speeds up the liver clearance or breakdown of other drugs. So it can't be taken with a lot of other prescription medications. But for all that, it is quite a useful enhancer of willpower. And as I say, I think of it as a herbal sunshine thing. So if you're the kind of person who gets seasonal affective disorder, your mood goes down in autumn, or you're just feeling gloomy and you need a bit of sunshine in your life, it might be helpful. With the caveat about the medications and just needing to check. But a couple of other herbs I'd mention. One would be rose. I have a friend of mine who, and particularly damask rose, pink roses. Now, these can be taken as a tea. So, for example, a dried rosebud, a single dried rosebud makes 1 cup of tea. Just put it in a cup, pour on boiling water, cover it for 5-10 minutes, makes a cup of tea. I've linked a bunch of research on rose below this video in the description box. And you'll see from that there's research being done on its effects on anxiety, on low mood, and even in sleep disorder. And it has mild but noticeable effects on all of those things. I have a friend who has PTSD, and she calls it her rose tea. She calls her PTSD. She said it's very, very effective for treating some of her symptoms of PTSD, which is interesting because this isn't a recognized use of rose. But I do have this excellent book, which is called The Western Herbal Tradition. And it's a compilation of all the traditional sort of uses of a handful of interesting and important plants. And the summary of recommendations for damask rose are from this: to strengthen the heart in palpitations and fainting. I would think of that more as the heart in terms of it's not the physical heart, but more so the emotional heart in terms of one's reactions to stress. To lift the spirits in melancholy, to strengthen a weak stomach, liver, and bowels. It's slightly astringent and binding. For vomiting and diarrhea, for constipation in children and adults, for cooling hot fevers, hot headache, and joint ache. One of the studies I've linked below actually found that when rose was tested for PMS in women, it actually helped a lot with any headaches associated with menstruation. So it does seem to have this mild analgesic or pain relieving effect. For sore mouth and throat, for coughs, especially as honey of roses. And there are some other uses there as well. But so it's actually quite a useful supportive for mental health. And in fact, rose was in medieval times what it was described as one of the 4 cordial flowers, cordial meaning beneficial to the heart as the emotional center. And it was thought to be cooling. So I always think of it as a plant that as a medicine that is good for emotional disturbance with a little bit of anger. Like there's sadness there may be a feeling of being unloved, and there's anger with it because rose has that cooling effect, and anger was traditionally a hot emotion. We say that, don't we? Like people getting hot under the collar. And then the last herb, because I don't want this to be too long, I'm just going to mention today, would be another very mild, very safe, very gentle one, would be oat straw. And I've got here my copy of the King's American Dispensatory, which is a 19th century, I think, herbal from America. And I really love this herbal because back in the day, these guys, the eclectics they were called, they looked at herbs in great detail. They really analyzed their empirical effects on people. And what they've got here for oat straw, and when I say oat straw, I mean the aerial parts of the plant. That includes the seeds, but it's the whole straw, and it's usually harvested green, so when the plant is fresh. So Avena sativa. So this would be, it was what they used to call milky oat. So the fresh plant, including the seeds, which I think is important because I've included in the links in YouTube a paper just listing some of the constituents of oat. And it's actually quite a trove of compounds, including the avenanthramides, which are strongly antioxidant and would be much higher in the fresh plant. So Avena sativa, this plant is a nerve tonic, stimulant, and antispasmodic. It ranks among the most important restoratives for conditions depending on nervous prostration and for the nervous exhaustion consequent upon typhoid. I wouldn't rely on that these days. And other low fevers and the accidental disorders arising from these complaints, as weak heart, insomnia, etc. In enfeebled states of the heart muscle, it acts as a good tonic to improve the energy of the organ. And in this, I think spasmodic conditions of the neck of the bladder are said to be relieved by it, which is interesting. It goes, there's also the atonic. So I think I'll leave it there because there's lots of other sort of really medical stuff there. But the nervous disorders part, oats is used, green oats particularly, or oat straw is used in modern herbal medicine, really for sort of nervous exhaustion, for insomnia, for anxiety. And it's such a mild, safe remedy. It's suitable for almost everyone. I say almost because if you are extremely celiac, have a wildly high intolerance to gluten, then even an oats tincture might be worth avoiding. But I will repeat that the oats tincture is made from the whole oat plant. There is a little bit of the seed in there, but you're not really going to get much gluten, if any, in the tincture. Mainly because gluten is not soluble in water. It's a protein that doesn't really dissolve in water. But if you're very celiac, then I would avoid it. So I'm gonna wrap it up there. I've kind of covered, just in brief, given a few little ideas in 3 different categories for mindset, action, and plants. So that's an approach that I try and take whenever people are going through some difficulties, just using that as a sort of map or schema, trying to come up with some mindset alteration ideas, some framing, some actions that can be taken, some practical actions, or as I call it in my practice, homework, and then some plants that can be used as supportive allies through that situation, can make even the crappiest situation a bit less crappy, at least. So I hope that's been helpful. If you like it, please do like this video. Please share it with anyone you think would enjoy it. And hopefully I will see you all again next week. Bye.